Okay, so we are really getting to the nitty-gritty of what we're doing here. And last time we talked a lot about kind of what our goals are with nutrition. And again, going back to that primary objective is to optimize cellular energy production. Yeah. And so we talked about inefficient energy production versus efficient energy production. And how do we know whether or not we are producing one or the other? How do we tune into that? And that's what we're going to talk to you a little bit about today. I think one of the greatest tools that we have is what we're going to be talking to you in a few minutes about, because, you know, we mentioned it a couple audios ago about the chaos that's created in the body when we're in a hypometabolic or deficient state, or the body is in a compromised state, is that we might not be receiving the proper messages. Right. And these subjective and objective assessments we're going to be introducing you to are a way to bring that awareness into your life so that you can begin to understand exactly how things are affecting you in the moment. It's unlike a lab that's going to give you obviously an in the moment type of a idea of where your body is physiologically. However,
but these are ways to kind of look at your body throughout the day, every day, and not spend hundreds of dollars. You know, I think that we all have that subjective assessment. You know, what's going on physically, mentally, emotionally, you know, digestively, etc. Some of us maybe don't, you know. And a lot of times we're like, oh, I feel fine, right? Remember those stages of disease, though. Do you know what's going on physiologically in your body? Do you know what's going on pathomorphologically in your body, etc.? Even when you have a symptom, some people can't even tune into that, right?
Well, and I can say for myself, so much of what I used to experience was my norm. That was normal to me. So right. I didn't identify it as being not normal.
Right. You know, it's like that person that says, I'm not constipated. I go to the bathroom every 3 days. I've done that my entire life. That's their norm, but I'm sorry to say that's being constipated, right? But at the same time, on the other end of it, some of us are so far from just ourselves because we're so chaotic inside. And we've never gone there. We don't know how to really tune into our body to say, how do I really feel if I sit down? Like, what is really going on in my system? You know, and the hard part is so many people, more probably people than not, are going all day. And they're doing so many things that really don't allow us to tune into ourselves. So what we're really trying to do here is take that subjective, or take that objective, you know, looking at body temperature and pulse. And of course, there's other ways, which we haven't really
introduced that yet, but that's what we're going to be talking to you about today.
So we want to teach you how to use, in a nutshell, like what is body temperature and pulse, and some other ways that you can connect this subjective and the objective. So of course, you know, when we talk subjective, we're talking about how do I feel? You know, taking the time to check in with yourself throughout the day. I mean, have you ever done that?
Well, it's interesting because I have to literally remind my clients to do that. And my clients have to remind themselves to do that. They actually have to set alarms to check in with themselves because it's such a foreign concept. It's just not something that we take the time to do throughout our day. And I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure Josh can probably share a couple stories about this as well, that, you know, they're really kind of like, I have absolutely no idea even where to go with this. I don't know how I feel. And that's okay. We completely understand that. So, you know, don't be afraid of that, but it's something to kind of say, oh, well, that's interesting. That's interesting that I really don't have any sense of what I'm experiencing in my body throughout the day. And then there's the other end where you're very aware of it because your body's screaming at you.
Right.
And this is going to really provide you some inside information as to why it's screaming at you. And sometimes you're not really going to like why it's screaming at you because it's going to require that you make some changes.
And that's the biggest thing is a lot of people say, oh, I've done this before. I've checked in myself. I wrote it down. But a lot of us don't act on it, right? We have to make change to change. And that's what we're trying to do here.
So this is giving you that opportunity. And it's really like we tell our clients, you all want the answer to why. Why do you feel a certain way? What's going on in your body? Why doesn't it work? Blah, 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 blah. We always want the answer to those questions. If you really want the answer to those questions, then you will take the time to kind of begin to play with what it is we're sharing with you today, because all the answers are there for you if you take the time to come into some awareness of yourself in your day.
And the greatest thing about this is you can feel fine and your body can be under huge stress, right? Stress is a physiological reaction. You know, as Hans Selye says, you can have huge stress and no tension in the body. And that's where we're trying to connect you with that objective aspect of this with body temperature, pulse, and some other simple ways. Or vice versa. You can have no physiological stress at all and have a ton of tension in your body. So really trying to connect all of this for you to kind of create some, let's just say, get you back to homeostasis and go, this is what it's like to be in homeostasis. Or, you know, for me, for doing all this work, this is what it's like to feel like a physiological change is going on, or feel like my temperature's dropping, or my temperature's going up, etc., etc.
I know exactly when my temperature's down, and I know exactly when my temperature's up.
Yeah.
and I'll just say,
it's empowering.
I'll just leave it at that right now.
It's empowering. So we didn't just come up with this. I wish we could say we did. I mean, you know, but in the 1940s, there was a doctor. His name was Broda Barnes, and unfortunately, he's passed away. But he's got a lot of great information out there. He actually has a website. He discovered body temperature and pulse, that it gives an accurate reflection of the body's metabolism. That's what we talked about, the biochemistry. But it reflects the amount of active thyroid hormone T3 available in the cell, which indicates the rate at which your cells are converting food or stored energy into energy. That's basically what we said, right? We're looking at how much energy we're taking in, how much energy we're restoring, how much thyroid hormone we're converting, and how much is available at the cell level so we can produce energy. And what is amazing to me about this is we're using body temperature and pulse to really look at what is going on at your cell level in every tissue of the body. Broda Barnes has said in almost everything that you're made up of cells. Every tissue has trillions of cells in it. And glucose and thyroid hormone act on every single cell in your body. What does that mean? It means that you can influence every part of your body and every system in your body with food.
That's pretty powerful stuff, guys. Really, really, really powerful stuff. So it really kind of puts it back in your hands. You know, it really does.
I always say to people, and I use this hashtag a lot on Instagram, we are food. Because we are food.
And we've kind of been talking a lot. This kind of pulls in this whole level of conscious nutrition that we're talking about. We're making more conscious decisions by being more informed in how our body is functioning physiologically throughout the day. So we actually get to take that information, understand it a little bit more clearly as far as what it's doing. And I think if we look a little bit at what might influence low body temperatures so that you can understand a little bit more directly what that really means.
There's a lot of things that can influence your body temperature and pulse.
Well, this is more what we're going to go into is what body temperature causes, or what we're going to experience in the body when the body's in a deficit. But I think
it basically can affect every system of the body, because your cells, if you think about it, I'll simplify it. The cells are the conductor to the orchestra. The orchestra is all your organs and tissues. So your cells would tell them what to do. Any disruption in body temperature pulse has a huge effect on the digestive system, usually leading to the inability to break down and absorb nutrients, hence malabsorption, hence the fancy term leaky gut syndrome, or many others. It, of course, can suppress thyroid function because we need thyroid hormone for cellular respiration. So if our cells are saying we're not producing energy, what does that mean? We're not converting thyroid hormone.
Well, in adrenaline and cortisol, if we have low body temperature, it's an immediate indication that the body's in a state of compensation, a state of inflammation, which means that, again, those hormones tend to suppress thyroid function.
It can, of course, create mineral imbalances, breakdown of muscle tissue, causing tissue destruction, adrenaline compensation, which can lead to high blood pressure. I mean, the list goes on and on. We could probably sit here for hours upon hours and talk about the effects of low body temperature and pulse on the system. Now, this is a touchy subject because there's many conditions that lower body temperature pulse, such as hypothyroidism. And honestly, I want to touch on this a little because we don't even like using that term. We like using the term hypometabolic because honestly, from doing this work for so long and studying the work of Broda Barnes and just the physiology of the body, I've honestly, and I don't know if Jeannie has as well, come across two people in over 12 years that are truly hypothyroid. And Broda Barnes talks about this, and the easiest way to tell is if you wake up with a really low body temperature, so we could say normal body temperature is anywhere from 97.8 to 98.6. Doesn't matter where it is. That's just norm. Normal temperature for us to be in a metabolic state would be, let's just say anything over 70 to 85. Anything above 85 is... pulse, would be hyperadrenaline. Anything below, you're basically kind of hypometabolic in a sense.
Everything's slowing down for purpose of preservation. So
it's an adaptation.
It's an adaptation.
Right. And most people say, well, I'm actually, more fit. Well, you're actually overtraining, not meaning your body's needs. You're hypometabolic is what it really is. And you're compensating with adrenaline. That's why you feel so, hyped up. But what we really see is, and Dr. Karazian talks about this, most people are functionally hypothyroid. Now, there's 6 different functional hypothyroidisms, but the bottom line is this. It really comes down to one thing. This is a conversion issue. It can be a conversion because of lack of glucose coming in, a lack of glucose being stored, estrogen dominance, which is most common, people taking excess thyroid hormone when they don't need it and they're not hypothyroid, which creates a thyroid resistance. So they're functionally hypothyroid. So what is the difference with body temperature and pulse? The real difference is people will wake up with a low temperature and they're around the same temperature and pulse all day, no matter how they eat, what they do, etc. And that's a true thyroid issue, and we rarely see that. People with functional hypothyroidism usually wake up with a low temperature and pulse, but when they start eating food, it'll fluctuate throughout the day. And that means it's a blood sugar handling issue, and that means it's a thyroid conversion issue, because we're not regulating our blood sugar to store the energy to basically create the conversion. So listen to that a couple times and maybe do a little bit of research, but we're not doctors, so let's just preface it with that. But I can say personally that I feel a lot of people we work with that have that diagnosis and that are on these medications truly don't have hypothyroidism. They have functional hypothyroidism. Okay, getting back to conditions at lower temperature pulse, diets high in polyunsaturated fats, nuts and seed oils, etc., fatty fish. Hypoglycemia, meaning not regulating your blood sugar. Adrenal insufficiency, meaning not regulating your blood sugar, putting a huge burden on the adrenal system.
And this is, that's kind of what's really underlying a lot of those people that have more functional hypothyroidism or not a true hypothyroid issue is more of an adrenal insufficiency that's creating the thyroid issue. Because again, we talked about in one of the last audios the relationship between the two. And that's why sometimes when people go on thyroid medication in this situation, it completely throws the system into overdrive.
I mean, how many of you right now, and please share this in the comments below, have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism? You go on your medication and it does nothing, number one, or it actually makes you feel much, much worse, or you've been on it for 2 or 3 years and you really don't feel much difference, or you feel worse.
Or you've had multiple increases in your dosage because it worked for a little while and then it stopped working, and then they increase the dose and it starts working again, and so on and so forth. So again, we're going back to that root cause is not being addressed. We're not looking at the system itself. We're looking at one piece of it, and we have to get away from that.
Now, let's kind of talk about the different ways to measure body temperature and pulse. Of course, pulse, you just take the 2 fingers in your right hand if you're a right-handed person, put them on the thumb side of your wrist, and you can take your pulse there. You can take it on the carotid artery in your neck, etc. And if you don't know how to do that, just Google or YouTube that. It's pretty easy. Take it for about 30 seconds and multiply it by 2. That's the most accurate. There's a couple different ways to measure body temperature. Now, what we recommend is using a digital thermometer, not mercury. It's really hard to find mercury nowadays. and usually you have to keep the thermometer honestly in your mouth for 5 to 10 minutes to get an accurate reading. So usually we recommend safety first, digital thermometer. You can take it axillary, which is under the armpit, which is kind of the most common, which is actually recommended by Broderbunds as being the most accurate upon waking in the morning while the body's in a restful state. We only recommend this if people have severe sinus issues, because the next way is using it orally or doing your temperature orally. But the problem is if you have chronic sinus issues, which is associated with being hypometabolic, it can raise your oral temperature. So if you have really bad sinus issues, do it axillary. But if not, I would say 95 to 99% of our clients do it orally. And of course, the old way is rectally, and I'll be honest, I've had few clients from different countries tell me that they do it rectally. So whatever way suits you, go for it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's things like, your menstrual
considerations.
Yeah, so if you think about it, you've heard the term, you can look at what's going on your cycle and ovulation, take your temperature and pulse to see what's going on. Of course, take into consideration if you're on your cycle, that can influence temperature and pulse. Young women with irregular menstrual cycles, or women that are postmenopausal, of course, that will influence your temperature and pulse.
Yeah, so you women want to take their temperatures on the second and third day of their menstrual cycle to get more of an accurate reading. But I will also say that taking recordings and watching patterns from your follicular to your ovulation to your luteal phase can be very insightful for you in understanding more what's going on with your hormonal balance and regulation.
So we talked about the why. We kind of gave you some, things that cause low body temperature and pulse or how it affects the system. But using this it's so powerful. I mean, it's doing so many things. I don't even know if I could say all the things that it's doing, but it's really allowing you to assess your hormonal influences, your metabolism, to identify subclinical, we should say functional hypothyroidism, to identify adrenal and blood sugar influences on metabolism, or if you're not regulating your blood sugar. And you're really looking at, what's going on in the body throughout the day. What's working for me food-wise throughout the day. Am I eating the right foods for my body to meet my metabolic needs? Am I eating the right food frequency to meet my metabolic needs? Am I eating the right ratios and grams to meet my metabolic needs? How is my workout working for me throughout the day? How is my life working for me throughout the day? And we always say, is what you're really doing, everything in your life and food, working for you?
Yep. And it's a perfect challenge. And I think we're going to challenge you guys to kind of take a look at your body temperatures and pulses and see what kind of readings you're getting. So that's what we really want you to kind of tune into a little bit.
I think we challenge you to do this. And it's really simple because, when do I do it? How do I do it? What does it mean?
Yep.
I think the biggest place to start to get your baseline to see, is what I'm doing and how I'm living and how I'm eating working for me. I don't care if you're eating organic food, if you're on the best diet in the world, if you feel like Superman or Superwoman, then tomorrow when you wake up, or when you have your thermometer, when you wake up in bed, laying down, take your pulse, and then take your temperature, write it down. That's going to give you your baseline. If it's 97.8 to 98.6 with a normal pulse, anywhere from 70 to 85, then you're doing good, right? If it's below that, what is that telling you, right?
Yeah.
It's information. If it's above that, what is it telling you? And if you re-listen to this audio, it's telling you a lot. Now, of course, this isn't a lecture.
Well, no, but I want to point out, again, we're going back to all the questions we have about what we're supposed to be doing as far as health is concerned. What are we supposed to be eating? How do we do this? Well, Josh kind of mentioned that baseline, and that baseline is a really, really important piece to help guide you along the way. It takes a little bit of work, and it's not black and white, but again, you're being provided information. The more you take the time to get to understand what that information means to you, you're putting the power back into your own hands. And that's what we love so much about what we're doing differently, is we're addressing that fundamental need so we can essentially get out of our ways and let the body do what it needs to do, because that's what food was designed to do. It's designed to fuel us and provide us the resources. And then we get to look at exactly how that's working, and we get to make changes accordingly.
Now, of course, in our programs and in our consulting that we do, we go into this a lot more, because it's not just about body temperature pulse. It's looking at that and correlating it with how you're doing physically. Basically, how do I feel? Right? How am I living? And
it's not about chasing body temperatures and pulses either, because that's a very, very dangerous game.
Because there's a lot of people, it's just a reading to help you and guide you, right? There's a lot of people that feel horrible but have perfect body temperature and pulse. What does that tell us? It tells us that their body is very resilient, and if they just make some small changes, they'll probably make a lot of progress in a short amount of time, right? And there's people that feel awesome.
I did. I felt amazing. I looked amazing. I felt amazing.
She still looks amazing.
Pretty much dying.
But have a horrible body temperature pulse. What does it tell us? It tells us a lot about their history, but unfortunately it tells us a lot about how they're not connecting with their body and their systems, right? And we've all been there. I'm the same way. I'm a guy, I feel great all the time. We're never going to really say when we don't feel well, but we have to make these connections, because we don't want to end up in that symptoms or disease place before we wake up and say, okay, I'm ready. We want to catch it. We're in that pathophysiological phase. We can bounce back to homeostasis. And of course, there's other things that we teach, like the Achilles reflex under the shirt test, the temperature of our feet or our nose, or blood pressure differential. There's so many ways to refine what's going on and connect to what's going on in our body. Like Jeannie said, it's all there. We just have to take the time to actually do it, which is the hard part.
But I'll tell you what, when you've done it, you've got it. You really understand yourself in a whole new way, and you really begin to see what you need and how you need it and when you need it. So you get to go back to living life. So, I think we talked a little bit about, what's the problem with that? I don't even know how to read this body temperature and pulse. And I think the one thing that we can say to you guys is just get started.
Yeah.
Get started. And I think and next time we talk to you, we're going to talk a little bit about refining.
I think the biggest thing is people always want to know the why, and that's what gets in their way of healing. So just start doing. Just start doing right now. And in the next audio, we're going to talk about some refinement and kind of wrap it up and give you some tips on kind of how to continue this process.
Yeah.